Hi, what we are doing now is looking at the some terminologies that I think we need to uh, have a look closely. Yeah. Um, Let me get to you on the screen. Yes, minimize this and then put it on the screen. Yes, can you see on the screen? We are going to look at, by the way, this is Introduction to Semiotics. We're going to be looking at three terms: signs, codes, and symbols. Okay. It's, Before we begin, let's start off by looking at our sensory organs, how we perceive the world. Our perception is our ability to know things through our sensory organs, through hearing, seeing, touching, to tasting, and to, smelling. We have actually five senses on the screen, and the oncoming psychologists will call them, stimuli. Well, we can call them signs. The thing is that when we want to understand anything, we have to go out and have, do some searching, and not only searching, but creating or decoding, getting something out of it. As Paul Celan is a famous poet said that reality is not simply there. It must be searched and won. Think about this, okay? So let me get back to one definition. What a sign is. A sign is anything represents something else. When I say anything, it means that a sign is has a very broad definition. Anything can be a sound, like something like that. Can be a smell, even nice smells of coffee in the morning. Touch, taste. It can be an object. It can be a scenario, an event. It can even be something abstract, like a thought, an idea. And is a mature form of what we call a stimulus, because I think elsewhere I have discussed the what we call the threshold of perception. um, is something that would cause our part of the body or our sensory organs to register that oncoming stimulus and register that as a sign and react to it. Okay. In everyday language, we can talk about a sign of something. For example, X is a sign of, you know, and also this is the language that we can use. The planet shows no signs of life. Now, if you go to Mars, you will say that, oh, there's no signs of life here. And another example is the one on the screen, the fighting in the area shows no sign of abating, no sign of uh, you know slowing down. And so signs can be a general impression of the situation, and it can be that large, or it can be something very small, like a sign of a flickering of light when you are in darkness. Can you uh, register that uh, flickering of light as a size, maybe depending on each individual. Some people can see well in darkness, but some cannot. So that's all about SI. It's anything that can stand for something else. Let's talk about a code. A code is another level of sign. This is where you systematize the sign. You create um, objects or other signs, and then we human beings agree upon this particular set of signs and then put them together to form the meaning. On the screen, you can see one definition from the Cambridge Dictionary. A code is a system of words, letters, or signs used to represent a message in secret form. A system of numbers, letters, signals used to represent something in a shorter or more convenient form. So we talk about a system. So when you systematize size, you get codes. Now you get a set of code. Code can mean a set of human rules, accepted as general principles, the written rule or spoken rule, dictating or setting limits to our freedom to do or to see or to feel. Well, that's a broad definition. So it's a set of a code. A code can be a set of rules, as in the word code of conduct. You can see on the screen, this is also um, a set of codes or a set of conduct, what to do, what not to do. You know, you can talk about dress code. You know, when you go to a funeral, you got to wear certain dresses, outfit in certain colors. You know, because it has some meaning. And the dress code for uh, going into Buddhist temples in Thailand. And nowadays we talk about a new normal. When you go out, you need to wear a mask. You need to wear a mask. And we have to keep social distancing. This is another what we call code, a set of behavior that we are subscribing to. On the screen, you can see that there are some codes. You can see it here, right? 110/124. This is the code, and this is the zip code. As you can see, 10900. This is a zip code for the area that I'm in Bangkok. So codes are nothing new. I mean, we have used them, we know them long before. And also you can actually play around with words like using symbols and a dot and a dash to represent certain letter. And then when you combine the letter, you get the message. This is a kind of coding. So as I just said that a sign to a code, when you systematize codes, you get, when you systematize signs, you put them into order based on a set of rules. What you will get is a code. So I would say that a code is a sign agreed upon to represent something else. Okay, are you still with me? It's a bit, abstract. I'll try to make it as entertaining as possible. So we know that signs are arbitrary. Elsewhere, I have talked about um, natural signs like the sunrise, the sunset, the high tide, the low tide, leaf falling, the dark clouds in the skies, the moon, sun. I mean, those are what I would say phenomena. Oh, sorry, natural phenomena. They are natural signs, and they are also human signs. Human signs. Uh, is the is about the interpretation and agreements of people in a particular society, so that we can understand each other. So if you are reading sentences, all the words, phrases, and sentences on the screen, what you have been doing is decoding the codes or the messages in order to get some meaning out of it. So there are two terms that you need to understand. One is decoding, the other is encoding. When you are writing or saying something, you in the process you are encoding the size. You put the size, you system you put the size into a certain system, and the other end need to actually uh, unpack or decode the size. This is the process of a communication in general. And there are many codes. Like you can think about the computer, where you actually uh, process. You have the machine would process the what we call the signals or the data, 0101, and then convert them into higher levels of language. Now, from machine language to uh, natural language. Okay. Another example of coding is the HTML color, or the programming language. You need to understand the codes in order to communicate with the machine, and then send the command to the machine, and so that the machine can execute the command and then communicate back. Okay, so these are some of the uh, computer codes or software codes. So as I said, even though machines are learning the language, but at this point in time, at the moment, all the uh, computer codes, programming languages, all the codes are the product of humans. It's our creativity and creation. We create, we agree upon certain goals, and then we follow them, and then we train the machine to recognize the codes so that they can communicate back, or they can do something about the codes for other purposes. We've been hearing discussions on coding as a subject in school. So coding is very important nowadays in computer science, and coding is programming actually is the process of writing instructions. I mean, using codes, writing instruction for machines in such a way that they are able to understand or to recognize, and then they can respond back, they can behave something. Okay, so this is the meaning of coding. And you know that there are several programming languages, like I would say coding languages like HTML, CSS, SQL or SQL, Java, the JavaScript, the C or C++, even Perl, Kotlin, uh, or Node.js, or even Linux. These are the common programming languages. All of these are languages because they have the syntax or the structures, as well as the what we call the commands, which is the set of vocabularies putting together under certain rule. So there are many like a sign. A sign, as I told you, has a broad meaning. A code is also essentially there are two meanings. A code is generally is like a sign is something which tells something else. Is the structure in which signifiers become organized and meaningful. This is in semiotics. We talk about signifier or signifier and the signifier. Okay, and also a rules for interpretation. This is in computing or in programming, in coding, for converting information from one system to another. And the codes determine a field in which certain meanings are permissible but cannot be used in themselves to generate an original message. I mean, you use you put the codes to do something. Well, because of course it's not conscious so far. I mean, not. So codes are instruction for deciphering, interpreting, and decoding the meaning. When you hear the word 7503 around EPU, you understand that the first number is the building, the second is the floor, and the last two digits will be the room number, like building 7, floor number 5, room number 3, 7503. So in order to understand it, you need to actually we need to agree upon by the what we call the people in that particular community. We call this speech community. Like if you talk to me to go to room 7503, I will know right away. But if you talk to someone somewhere else, they will ask, what do you mean by this? So in order to understand and decode you really need to have some commonality, common knowledge. That's why I say coding is also a cultural enterprise. It has some culture inside coding. Uh, as I just mentioned earlier about reality, reality is something that you need to search for and want. It is not presenting to you without you doing something. So you need to put a bit of effort into uh, into your decoding process in order to understand. Even our brain, our sensory organs, like the eyes, our brain, our neuron networks or neuron systems. These are the combination of body sensory organs to help us detect or register oncoming stimuli and then recognize them as being signs. And we talk about code. At any given time, a sign has potentially many meanings. It's like, when you look at a painting, there's a saying about a painting tells 1,000 stories. Of course, because your ability to interpret and understand a particular painting depends on your background and your history. That's why a painting has the potential to create meanings, many meanings. And because of that, we need to narrow down the ramification of that particular set of signs and then codify them. So codes are the system or the structure which organize signifiers. I said about we actually systematize those signs in order to kind of communicate in a consistent manner. As a matter of fact, you cannot have a signifier without it belonging to a code or some kind of system that would enable one to interpret it. When I say it, I mean signifier more consistently and accurately. Therefore, codes allow us to interpret and produce consistent meanings of signs so that we can make sense of the world, we can have mutual understanding. It's all about communication. If you following me, proceed to the next one. For example, when you put the letter D O G, you will say that, oh, this is a dog. The organization is that you put the letter D before the vowel, consonant, vowel, and consonant. So you kind of set a system for the interpretation and understanding a particular set of symbols or signs. They are also the system that we create in public. For example, we can think of street signs, regulation signs, elsewhere the no smoking sign, um, other size on the street or around the building. Now, before we move on, I just told you about the code and the sign, and I mentioned about the signifier and the signifier. So we can, so in short, code has two meanings. It can be a set of rules. That rules can be the rules for you to wear clothes, to behave, to eat. It's a cultural rules. A code can be a set of systematized symbols or signs. So there are essentially two definitions of the word code. Okay, so it provides the framework so that we can interpret the meaning of the sign. Some may say that, oh, we want to avoid ambiguity. Yeah, but sometimes we do not say what we mean and we mean what we say. It's a social system organizing signs. That's why we have language. That's why we have language. So a language is a structure or a system of codes or a system of signs. It's a matter of organizing, systematizing the signs, moving the sign up to the layer that we can actually communicate across space and time. Okay, so there are many types of code when we talk about this. We can talk about the Morse code, the binary codes, the dress code, the DNA anagram, the phonological codes, social codes, can be verbal, non-verbal codes, textual codes, interpretive codes, or so on and so forth. There are different types of code. A code is therefore a structure or a system of signs. Here you have fashion code and the codes for wearing outfits. And in order to understand utterances or the language, you need to have some background knowledge uh, for you help you to interpret this. Now, lastly, let's move on and talk about symbols. A symbol is uh, is also a sign that agreed upon by the people in the society. Uh, is a sign. It can be an object that we use to represent something else. It's a general term. Like for example, a heart shape is the symbol of love. You can see this as a symbol of love. I think everybody knows here. And what do you think are the symbols of freedom and peace? Maybe you can think of a white dove. You can use a symbol to represent a quality or an idea. Um, you can think of the use of metaphors, similes, for example. or it can be the situation that we uh, assign an idea into a phenomenon and then use that phenomenon to symbolize something abstract, like owning a car, especially a very expensive car, has become a symbol of wealth, symbol of success in many Asian countries. Okay. Now the last topic here is on the what we call symbolic power, which is symbols and power. There are many types of power. Sir Francis Bacon will say that knowledge is power. Ah, knowledge is power. If you have knowledge, you have power. But if you, what do you mean by knowledge? You have to understand more about that. Now, what I'm doing now is explaining to you the meaning or the concept of symbolic power introduced in the 60s by a very famous French sociologist by the name of Pierre Bourdieu. Symbolic power, according to Bourdieu, is a type of power associated with symbolic system. Now, this is a terminology that this is a jargon that you have to understand when we say about symbolic system. There are many symbolic systems. Usually, the system, when we talk about symbol, you have to understand the word symbol implies the agreement of a group of people within the society. A symbolic system can be art, religion. Language is a symbolic system, as I mentioned. Even education, and others. Okay, art, religion, language, education. These are the symbolic system. They have the ability to impose a particular vision of the world. Elsewhere, they talk about ideology, uh, ideology, or the perspective or the vision of the world. What is appropriate? What is true? Things like that. So this is what Bourdieu called the symbolic power. So language, like the English language, has symbolic power in our society, in the Thai society, or in many other societies, because it's had the ability to impose a particular vision of the world. It's have the power. So just to wrap up, I've been talking about actually three different terms in language communication and semiotics: signs, codes, and symbols. It's all about interpretation and meaning. At the uh, higher level, we can put the signs, the codes, and the symbol into a bigger umbrella, that is culture and communication. Signs, codes, symbols are topics under culture and communication. We are actually looking at the what we call the machine level or the lower level of communication, the use of signs and the cultivation of sign and the cultivation of sign. Well, I will explain this in class. So I just wrap it up for you. I hope if you have any questions, you can leave your questions. I welcome the question as I uh, would like to, have a discussion with you guys. Anyway, I hope you enjoy this lecture. Let's see. I have to kind of end it somehow. Where's the machine?